Welcome to this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live, the show which ensures that you profit from your time spent here with experts, either through the industry insights, information, or simply learning from them. And today we have Chris Smith. He's a fitness, nutrition, and mindset coach, 25 years of coaching experience in a number of different settings, and 15 years experience as a physical therapist. Brings a vast level of experience from all this, as well as his own personal struggles and successes throughout his life. Welcome to the show, Chris.
Thank you very much. Glad to be here.
You are welcome to the show, Chris. You are welcome to India in this online form. And I'm sure not just in India, but a lot of people across the globe will benefit from what we are going to talk about. We'll talk about how one can unlock their peak performance. But before that, Chris, we just talked about your personal struggles and successes. And so let us know a bit about your journey, how you have traveled. You have been in the Marine Corps. So tell us a bit about your journey till here.
Sure, absolutely. So, I think one of the biggest struggles that I had through life, we go through a journey kind of growing up. I grew up, I moved around a lot. My dad was a career Marine, so that kept us moving. But then ultimately, I felt like I finally found that spot in life where I was received my doctorate in physical therapy. I had a good job. My wife had a good job. We had 3 children that were doing really well in school, playing sports on a regular basis. And then my life kind of turned upside down when my wife decided she no longer wanted to be in the marriage, and we kind of went our separate ways. So for me, that was obviously a very big deal, especially when I finally feel like, man, I've landed. I've made it where I want to be. And then all of a sudden it flipped completely inverted, right, where I was at. And it made me just really rethink things and really get back to that foundation of what are the real basics and principles that we have to work on in life to make sure that we can handle and tolerate those types of adversities when they come our way.
Right. So how did you then get down to rebuilding your life from there till when we are actually talking about it now?
Yeah. So I think for me, one of the biggest things, and the thing that I kind of turned to right away, and it was because of the thing that I really knew the most, it really was health and fitness. So, for one, that massively helps to deal with our anxieties and stresses of going through those moments. And it's also the one area that we have the most control. I tend to find the basic recipe for success for anything really is our focus, commitment, consistency, and discipline. So it really got me working on, those 4 pillars again. And of course, it's a constant journey. It's an ups and downs. I'm constantly working on it on a daily basis, even though this really occurred, the story that I gave occurred over 10 years ago. But I love that aspect. And it's where almost everybody, our journey, I think, in life, the idea of being peak performance, achieving excellence, is to be able to be successful in all aspects of life. But I love that idea of coming to fitness, nutrition, taking care of your body first. And again, it's because it's the area that you have the most control over.
Right, Chris. So you talk about, about never letting yourself get sidetracked from your goals.
Yeah.
And the tenacity to overcome obstacle in your path. So what about goals? Some people, can have an easy life or whatever life they think is stable now. And so they may not have those different sort of goals. They may just be happy with going with the flow. So how can one look at life from that perspective? And also, if you do not have any particular set of goals, then suddenly life can throw you so many things. Then you have to decide, okay, this is one thing I need to pursue. It might be a very different, new sort of a struggle. What do you suggest from your own life and under experience? How should one look at that? Or is it that they should always have a goal in life and keep working towards it?
I think for me, it's kind of natural. I tend to be a lifelong learner. So, my bias is everybody should be a lifelong learner. Always trying to find something else that you can kind of get a little bit better in. And whether it is, life comes with evolutions, right? First we meet a partner, then we have children, then we have a new career, changing career. So the opportunities to do things are always there. It's just sometimes we don't look at them and see them as those types of opportunities. So I do think it's important to be able to look at them as those types of opportunities and then take advantage of them. And I think with the idea of goals, there's no doubt when we have goals, it really is important to take those goals, to put them down on paper, and to reflect on them periodically. One of the biggest challenges whenever I'm really working with someone is that they don't track. They don't really work on it. They know what they want, but they haven't answered all the who, what, why, where, how, in which are all important aspects to address, especially when you're creating a goal. So, but it can start out much simpler than that. But the idea of getting in the idea of constantly tracking it and becoming that lifelong learner, I think if you don't do that, you really do miss out on that opportunity to really grow and develop and improve yourself on a daily basis.
Right, Chris. So in life, even if you are taking it easy because you can afford to take it easy, one should always keep on learning and always have something in their life, which they should be looking forward towards.
Yeah. Well, 100%. I think it's too easy to become complacent in life. And I think being able to identify that and realize there's more out there. And I think that's also that idea, because I'm always like, there's this idea of mastering myself. But then I break it down to any things like mastering nutrition, mastering physical exercise, mastering your morning, mastering sleep, mastering your finances. So though, again, once we start looking at life and looking at all those opportunities and all those areas that I can address and start working on making small changes on a routine basis or creating that path, then that's huge. But that's why so much of it also, I never leave mindset out of it, because mindset is 100% the key. Because if you have that mindset that oh yeah, I'm good right where you're at, you're probably not. And there's the concept that we're either improving or we're going down. We're going uphill or we're going downhill. We're never really actually staying the same, even though we might feel like we are, because the clock never stops moving.
Right, Chris. So what helped you most in your Marine Corps training? That helped you in all these aspects because you could look at life from that much more disciplined perspective, or was it because you had trained your mind in such a manner as an individual itself that it worked? What would you like to say? People may not be from the Marine Corps. Then what is it that they can create from within their life that can help them in good, keep them in good stead?
Yeah. So there's a great question, right? I mean, there's the truth. There's the $1 million question right there, because what part of it is intrinsic motivation versus external motivation? Because we all need something. So, and I know for me, part of it probably was the way that I was raised. So my dad was also a career Marine. So I was raised with that idea of kind of discipline, fitness always being important. We were taught early on, if someone can outbox you, out wrestle them. If they can out wrestle you, outbox them. If they can out wrestle you and outbox you, then outrun them. So there was always that concept of adapt, overcome, and improvise to make your way. So I think that kind of created that idea of a lifelong learner in me. And then I had the example of discipline through my father also, of just seeing someone who just every day woke up early, went to work. I know he worked long days, would finally make it back home, but it was just every single day. And he lived a very, routine, structured life. So I saw that. And I also saw the importance of kind of continually learning and getting better. So I think that developed in me that way. Developing it in other people, I think it just comes down to being able to say, because I think most people actually have this intrinsic drive. They just haven't necessarily seen it yet. And that's where just stacking those small daily wins kind of builds on things. I think it's also, again, it gets me back to, I know my mind early in the morning, let's just take it on a day-to-day basis. I wake up in the morning, I feel like I'm just a blob. There's nothing I want to do. But I go to the gym early in the morning and suddenly I get like 1 or 2 sets of exercise in, and I swear I'm a different person already. Because mentally, all of a sudden the blood starts flowing. I start getting invigorated, energized in a way that I wasn't before I got into doing my exercise or getting into the gym or whatever type of exercise someone chooses to do. I think it really makes a huge difference on getting started, gets us started. And then we can just start to find things to build on from there.
Right, Chris. So let's look at fitness, nutrition, and mindset. So people will say, you see, Chris, you need fitness because you were like that. Your dad must have motivated you. You motivated yourself. I'm a very busy man. How
Yeah.
do I look at my fitness? I feel fit. And you see, I have not got any weight, so I feel fit. What would you like to tell them? How should they look at fitness in terms as a fitness coach?
Yeah. So really one of my favorite ways to work or talk about fitness, because also as a physical therapist, I work mostly with the geriatric population. So I'm seeing people kind of at end of life, and some of them who are really struggling. It was because of the choices that they made earlier on in life. So I really like the perspective of taking fitness, for aesthetically a little bit. We all want to look good, feel good. That's important, living today, how we live, having the strength to get around. But more importantly, I really like, and more I emphasize that idea of longevity and living the best, highest quality of life that we can throughout life to maintain that quality of living. So I really kind of look at it there. And I think that's why, for no matter who you are, it's important. And it's also why more and more, and I love it now that more and more research and more information is out there about that, about weight training and using weights. So many people are familiar with the concept of osteopenia or osteoporosis, where our bones are getting weak and brittle as we age. But we haven't, until recent years, talked about the idea of sarcopenia. So the muscles wasting, getting smaller. But really, ultimately, it's the muscle strength that maintains bone density and bone strength. So it's a very important concept, because so many people are like, well, why do I need to lift weights? This is why you need, from a longevity perspective, this is why you need to lift weights. Obviously, you have more strength later in life, but more importantly, you're keeping your bones stronger late in life to avoid things like, a very common thing that I see all the time are compression fractures to the spine or hip fractures from falls.
Right. Now let's look at nutrition part. Someone will say, Chris, I've got only one life. There's the youngsters nowadays use this word YOLO. You only live once. So I live only once, and then I die off. So why should I avoid eating all the good things that is available? And also, I'm not putting weight. So what problem you have got, Chris? You want me to look at my nutrition. What are the good, like in the fitness part, you said very nicely. What would you like to say, both young and old, all the sort of people, how should they look at the nutrition part of things?
Yeah. So, and I honestly think the nutrition part ties exactly right into that fitness part of it. Okay. So, because from the nutrition piece, and this is what everybody struggles, it's getting protein. Again, we got to get in the nutrients that maintain our muscle density, our muscles. Okay. So, and it's not that I don't want people, I'm actually very simple with nutrition. I really do. I do focus on, focus on protein. You got to make sure you're getting in your protein to maintain muscle mass, and protein is the hardest nutrient to get in. But from that point on, as far as carbohydrates and fats go, I don't get overly concerned about those, as long as we're staying in our caloric range based on what we're trying to achieve at the time. If our goal is weight loss, well, then of course our caloric intake is going to be at a deficit. If we're trying to do weight gain, we'll be at a surplus. And otherwise, we just want to, if we're at a maintenance level, we just want to maintain our weight, but maintain our strength. We still want our protein, and we'll just hit a caloric number that's right for you as an individual. So does that answer that question?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, what perfect. In fact, I was thinking about the mindset part. They will say, okay, Chris, fitness, I can do it still. I need to go. I can go to the gym.
Yeah.
Nutrition also, it's about food, so I know what to do. What about mindset? How do I create a mindset which is not there in my mind? How does that work for someone?
Yeah. And ultimately, I think that is the hardest part, because it's our mind more than anything that is constantly working for us or against us. It never ends. And it's I found, especially coaching in so many different, and even athletics with sports and with teams, kids of all ages, adults of different ages, is that the number one thing that it came down to is exactly the same for everybody, was where were they mentally? Psychologically, what is their mindset telling them? That is absolutely the biggest hurdle that everybody ultimately faces. Because what's our biggest problem with getting into the gym, eating right? It's not usually the food. It's not usually the availability of equipment, because anybody can exercise at any spot at any time. It comes down to, where are we mentally? And we have to exercise our mind and our discipline just like everything else. And the reality is, the only way you exercise it is by doing it. Defining what you know you should be doing and then doing it no matter what. And I always still suggest it's got to start small, because it's hard. It would just be like going into the gyms. I wouldn't have you go into the gym and let's say, hey, let's jump on 500 pounds and start deadlifting that way, right? I want you to start small, but I want in low volume, low reps, but doing it. So we start to develop and create the habit. It's the exact same thing with our mindset, is developing small daily wins. We stack them. I also really like the idea and pushing also reading. Too many people, we don't read, but reading tends to be one of the best ways still to gain knowledge. I love using the internet. I love YouTube, Google, all sorts of social media for getting information, but nothing really ultimately beats it when I do take just a little bit of time and even just read a book. Just seeing the words and digesting it makes a big difference to me. So those are some of my basic, very early on ways that I suggest people to develop in these areas.
Wonderful, wonderful. There's much to understand from you about all those things, about fitness, about nutrition, about mindset, all things that make up for personal development. So for those people who would want to understand more from you, about you, want to get coaching from you, what is the best way for them to connect with you, Chris?
So the best way to connect with me, lots of times, is going to be directly through my social media on Instagram or TikTok. Just at Chris Smith _fit for both of those. They can always also reach me at chris.smith@achievingexcellenceonline.com is an email address. And I'm always available. My goal is to give as much value out as I can. So that's what I'm constantly trying to work on in my content, trying to give more and more. That's what I work on developing on a daily basis too. Much as I can, I want to give value, because it's ultimately just comes down to what people decide to do with it. And if they want personal one-on-one coaching, I love that as well. And I'm willing to help people out in any way that they need it.
Wonderful. With this, it's a wrap on this very special edition of the KAJ Masterclass Live. Thank you so much indeed for joining us.